Way up in the mountains lived an old man who had a small job, but a small job that made a great big difference. Let me explain. The old man's job was the keeper of the spring. And the spring was a spring of water that started way up there at the top of the mountain, but then flowed down the mountainside until it became a river which flowed through a small town at the foot of the mountain. And the keeper of the spring's job was to make sure that that spring was kept clean, that no dirt fell in it and no leaves were brushed into it. That was his job. So every autumn in particular, when the leaves fell from the trees, the keeper of the spring would go out and clear those leaves away. He would make sure that no dirt got into the spring. And he'd been doing that job for so long that the people who lived in the town at the bottom of the mountain had forgotten that he was even doing it. But the amazing thing was that because the spring was kept so clean, and because that meant that the river was so clean, well, lots of people came to visit the town because they wanted to come and spend time near that clean river. Some of them would swim in it. Some of them would have picnics by it. Some would come and feed the swans which came to visit the beautiful clean river. And because lots of people came to visit the town, well, lots of shops had sprung up to sell things to the visitors. Souvenirs, food. There were restaurants in the town, all to give food to the visitors who came to see the beautiful clean river. But one day, in a meeting held in the town at the foot of the mountain, everything started to change. The council had to save some money, so they were looking at where they could make some cutbacks. How could they save a few pounds? And they noticed that they were giving £2,000 a year to somebody called the Keeper of the Spring. Well, nobody could remember who the Keeper of the Spring was, nor what the Keeper of the Spring did, and they were sure that it would be okay to get rid of him. They could at least save £2,000 a year. Which is why one day the Keeper of the Spring found a letter on his door, and when he opened it up, he read that he was no longer needed. He'd lost his job. There wasn't going to be a Keeper of the Spring any longer. Well, at first, nothing really changed. Autumn came that year. The leaves fell from the trees, but there was nobody there to pick them up. And the river flowing through the town, although it was slightly dirtier, nobody really noticed. And then the next year, when again the leaves weren't collected up, well, the river was starting to get dirtier than it had been the year before, but again, nobody really noticed the difference. The next year, the leaves weren't collected again, and the river at the bottom of the mountain was dirtier still, and it had started to smell. The year after that, the leaves weren't collected. The river was starting to look really dirty, and the smell, well, it was even worse. Hardly anybody wanted to swim now in the dirty river, and the swans disappeared, and people started to go away and they didn't come to visit the town. And because nobody came to visit the town, the shops started to close down. And each year that went by, when the leaves weren't collected, it got worse and worse and worse. The council decided to hold an emergency meeting, and they decided to send the old man who lived at the top of the mountain another letter. And when the Keeper of the Spring opened this new letter, a big smile crossed his face, because the letter told him that he'd got his old job back again. Do you know what? It was only a little job, but that little job made a great big difference.